you're this person who has done so many different types of roles. You've occupied so many different spaces that I don't think of you in one way. And I think that would be the ultimate goal of any actor. What do you get when people see you on the street?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
I used to play like, I used to try to profile them and go like, wait a minute, how old are you? What's your age? Where are you from?
Right.
What kind of thing? And I would try to guess the thing they would. And a lot of times I would be right because it is generational now. For some, done this for 40 years.
Like you can tell when someone's going to be a Marvel fan.
Mostly.
And they'll know you from, Iron Man.
Yes.
That I would think would be clearer to know. But then you've done...
House of Lies, there are a lot of consultant people that come up to me, and if they're coming there in a suit and certain cadence, I'm like, I know which one you love,
Yeah. And you made us look like fools.
They're usually saying thank you so much.
Yeah.
They're like, ooh. But and I get Mouse a lot from, I know people that have come up and go, Devil in a Blue Dress. I know somebody just like Mouse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends. But yeah, I'm very fortunate in that way that I've gotten to do a lot of different kinds of things, and that's always what I wanted to do as an actor, and that was always what was really exciting to me, not to just play one thing over and over, but to, I came up doing theater and we had to do everything, so I just wanted to keep doing that.
Again, I can't settle on one, but the first time you really popped for me was in Boogie Nights. And when you're at that famous party wearing that insane getup, I don't even know what to call that getup.
It's like Earth, Wind, and Fire meets Rick James.
Yes. Meets Egyptian sun god.
Yes.
But you're sad.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful piece of acting because you're sitting there and you're not connecting with anybody. And to be wearing that getup and be sad at a party was, to me, like a beautiful thing.
Well, what's so funny about that moment, and we talked about it a little bit, was that what people imprint on that moment, because really I was being nothing, because that was what I was told by Paul to be, which I was trying to figure out what that meant. He was like, in this moment, I just want nothing. And I was like, okay. So I kind of did it. And then he came back. He's like, okay, you were doing nothing. I was like, I thought you wanted to know. He's like, no, I want nothing. I don't want you to do nothing. I want nothing.
Right.
So I was sitting there trying to figure out, like, what does that mean? And he walked over and went, okay, we got it. So he had been rolling.
He was rolling on you, basically digesting lunch and thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I think Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the greats. Just probably all the great shots where he didn't tell people. He just let the camera roll.
Yeah.
Most of the acting is people digesting.
There's a book that I think that's good.
That's another kind of acting method.
Yeah.
Have a big lunch just before you do your role.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I was remembering that you were a serious musician growing up, studying jazz, and then there's this fork in the road where is it going to be jazz or is it going to be acting? And you had to make the choice. I think you blew it.
I do too. Looking back, except I may have been a horrible, horrible musician. You never know.
Think of the money you'd be raking in with jazz.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Different people recognizing you for different kinds of jazz.
Different licks. Different...
I like your...
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. I really had you pinned more as a did it.
You just never know.
You never know, man. It takes all kinds.
Do you still play?
Now I kind of play the bass more than... I came up playing sax.
Right.
And thought I was going to do that for a minute and came up singing, doing vocal jazz. And I thought that one of those two things are what I was going to do. But then I really was enamored of people who could really, really do it. And I was kind of intimidated by the music, and it's not easy. And I knew that I was going to be going away, for school, and I wasn't going to be woodshedding. I wasn't going to be spending 12 hours on, scales and da-da-da. And, when I grew up later and talked to a lot of these musicians who are now amazing musicians, I said, did you used to have to beg your parents to practice, or did they used to have to beg you to do something else? And he goes, they would, all of the great ones are like, oh no, they had they had to pull me away from the piano, or they had to pull me away from my trumpet. It's like, that's all they wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, I'm not driven like that, but I want to be that good, so I can't do it. I have to be a recreational musician, because to get there, you already have to be kind of wired like that.
I keep coming back to, there's so much that we do in our careers. It's compulsion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know another word to say it, but we do the things that we end up, that eventually we were compelled to do.
I agree.
And I always come back to, I can't take credit for that. I didn't make a conscious decision. Whatever this thing is I'm doing, I was compelled to do.
Right.
And which is why I think murderers should not be put in jail.
Oh.
They were just compelled.
Hot take.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Hot take.
Yeah, they do that a lot, like just dead left turn. Like
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But if a murderer is compelled, it's not his fault.
That also sounds like a backdoor confession to me.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Kinda.
We'll get to
Yeah.
that later.
Okay.
Or you
Yeah.
you wanted to be a lawyer when you were growing up, and now you just went into this.
I wanted to be a murderer, but I just knew the hours you have to
Yeah.
put in.
Yeah.
You can't woodshed murder.
No.
I mean, in a way.
And
You
all those,
could. You
all
better
those-
woodshed your
yeah.
murderer.
Oh yeah.
You better put it somewhere.
All the supplies you have to buy.
No, it's a lot.
The saw.
You
That's
could
a
be a
lot.
recreational murderer.
I've tried it.
Hobbyist.
Yeah,
I've tried it.
hobbyist.
But then real murderers
Oh my
come along, and I'm
God.
like, man, that's the real thing.
Yeah, you're no Casey.
You're really doing it.
Did you? I'm curious because.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Don.
I enjoyed every moment of it. Let me just say that.
Don, let me say, you knew better than to come here.
I did.
We've encountered each other. You did the
You're
late night
right.
show many times. You've been here.
No, you're right.
You knew not to come.
You're right.
But when your publicist said, "What about Conan?" you were compelled.
I was compelled. Compelled.
I know in your acting career and producing career, you had the opportunity and the desire to do something about Miles Davis. Did that give you sort of an insight into him as a musician by getting to do that?
I mean, researching him and meeting people that, his family that were very instrumental in, no pun intended, getting that thing done, and being with, people that he played with and knew him, and, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And again, he's like on the, Mount Rushmore, he's 1-2 on it. So it's seeing all of the people that he influenced and all the careers that he influenced and all the music that he influenced. And the coolest thing about when I would meet people and told them that I was doing this is there were people that, 3 different distinct people, kind of like when you're saying, how do they recognize you? There are people that don't know anything about Miles before he was electric. They never started listening to him before Bitches Brew or, any of those electric, super rock. Mm-hmm. Now you listen to it, like all the heavy metal dudes know all that Miles music. But there were other people who had never listened to him. They were just traditionalist jazz. And as soon as he went electric, stopped listening to him.
Right.
And then there was this other whole generation that only knew him when he started doing covers of like Scritti Politti and Time After Time and Human Nature. It's like that's when they knew who he was. So he generationally affected all these different musicians that did not cross-pollinate in their, genres. So I was like, that's a testament. How many musicians do that?
I heard a Miles Davis story recently because we always talk about this in the podcast that we want to start ruling right away because sometimes people come in and before they even sit down, they start saying this amazing stuff. And you're like, God, were we rolling on that? Well, no, they hadn't sat down yet. I was relating that to someone. It was Jack Black. And he said that Miles Davis used to say, start rolling when I'm in the parking lot outside. Like
I believe
hit play when I'm still parking my car outside the recording studio. I want you recording on my feet walking in, opening the door, me biting into the cheese sandwich, everything before the music even starts because we need to capture it all because you never know.
To his album of just cheese sandwich.
Which many people think
I was going to say,
work.
what are you going to say? You're going to try to tear that album up?
It's no ham on rye sandwich album.
I beg to differ.